One night at the grocery store, a run-in with some leaky meat sent me in search of some hand sanitizer. As I pumped the cool liquid onto my skin, my hands found the old familiar pattern. Into the palms, over the backs of the hands, in between the fingers, and all the way up to the forearms. It was instinctive. I had done it so many times before. The pungent smell flooded my nostrils, awakened my senses, and transported me to another time, another place, an entirely different world I thought I'd long left behind. It took me to dim lights and dull linoleum floors, hushed voices amongst the dinging of monitors, billy lights, pumps, syringes, feeding tubes, blanket-covered isolettes encasing tiny sleeping babies, not yet ready for this world. This is the motherhood into which I was thrust. 9 weeks before my expected due date, in a swirl of high blood pressure and near renal failure, my body was quickly losing its battle with preeclampsia, and delivery was the only cure. I trembled on the operating table, partly from cold, partly from raw fear. But as my identical twin girls were removed and flung past me on their way to get cleaned up, I only remember being relieved that they were larger than the 3-pound hand weights I envisioned. I now bore the title of NICU mom. Despite the tour we took, the nurses who came to speak with us, or the literature I ignored while on bed rest, few things can prepare you for the overwhelming experience that is the neonatal intensive care unit. Scrubbing up to almost surgical standards, changing your first diaper on a 3-pound baby surrounded by wires and cords and the fear that you could very well break her, waiting, wondering if your presence is enough. Dark thoughts clouded my mind in my hospital room at night. I was racked with guilt at not being able to keep them in my body long enough, and I began to feel as if my pregnancy and the normal birth experience I imagined were stolen from me. I cast resentful glances on the cheerful pink and blue ribbons on the other patients' doors, knowing that they were likely snuggled up in their rooms with their babies. They were celebrating and preparing to go home. I was merely a visitor, a spectator. Would this time apart be detrimental to our lifelong relationship? Would it hinder my ability to bond with them? How was I even supposed to be there for them when I so desperately wanted to escape to something normal? Part of me felt I should hold constant vigil by their bedside for hours on end, barely breaking for bread and sleep. Another part of me watched the clock, anxiously awaiting the shift change when I know I would be kicked out, and I could shirk the responsibilities that weighed so heavily on my shoulders. The guilt that there wasn't much I could do for them. I didn't feel like a mother. Each morning I arrived and tried to soak in the daily report from the nurse. I stood awkwardly in between their 2 isolettes, waiting for someone to tell me what to do next. This place was home to them, yet so stifling to me. I loved them immensely and desperately wanted them to grow strong so they could come home, but this wasn't the motherhood I signed up for. Where was my motherly glow? Where was my uncanny ability to always know what to do? Don't they give that out at the hospital? They don't. But this was the version of motherhood I was pushed into, and I had to adjust. I had to jump. Or hop. I slowly adjusted to NICU life like one adjusts to a new route to work or a new school schedule, because I had to. I smiled at the scary-looking woman manning the front desk. I scrubbed up the same way each day, set my bags down on the same spot on the counter, and delivered my milk to the same familiar face. I stopped being a spectator and started being an active participant. I made myself at home, combing the bays for a breast pump, gathering pillows and blankets for nursing, and taking the initiative to ask about my baby's progress and what it might mean for their future. And the scary-looking woman at the front desk? Her name was Brenda, and she was actually quite lovely. During our 5-week stay, my little hops grew into jumps until we took the big plunge and brought the girls home. Again, I fought the feeling of being thrust into a new experience I wasn't quite ready for because, let's face it, who really is ready to bring home 2 screaming newborns? That was 4 years ago, and since then, motherhood for me has been all about the jumps, the leaps, and the pushes. Sometimes I jump into something daunting, like breastfeeding 2 babies at once, which is no small feat, especially when you leave the remote across the room. And I've jumped into scenarios that tested my comfort levels, taking 2 babies to the grocery store, taking 2 toddlers on an airplane, and taking the fronts off 2 cribs, fully knowing that they are no longer confined. Every morning, I jump into parenting, guiding, helping, consoling, and leading by example, Although that's only after being thrust out of bed by a 4-year-old whacking me in the face with Lightning McQueen. Some find it odd that I describe our NICU experience as nothing short of amazing, but it really was. Other than needing to grow, my babies were healthy, and we were all well cared for and supported. The NICU gave me the shove I needed to discover the path to being my kid's mom. It pushed me, made me uncomfortable, made me question myself, my instincts, and my heart. And I pushed back, I jumped, and I haven't stopped jumping since. Thank you.